the unexpected thing, the thing that I couldn't have thought was going to happen, the thing that I had no idea that I never would have believed would happen just happened. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that empowers professional women to rise. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and in this show, I take you undercover into the stories and lessons that I learned, sometimes the hard way, throughout my career. I also talk with working women, leaders, and coaches to show you that no matter what your struggle is, and no matter what your career goals are, you already have all the talent that you need to succeed. Welcome to the show. I am so excited about today's episode. I know that on this show, there is a lot of discussion around the things that are hard and the things that we struggle with. And that's a very real part of, I think, all of our experiences. But the flip side to struggling, and particularly the flip side to being committed to getting stronger when you are struggling and to being committed to growing and evolving through the struggle, the flip side of that is the payoff that happens on the other end when you've been working at something for a while, whether it's your sense of self-confidence or whether it's a new role that you want to get into. The flip side of working through whatever struggle or challenge it is that has presented itself to you is that on the other side of that struggle lies the thing that we want, the thing that we're seeking, the thing that we're pursuing. And today's episode is all about what happens when that new and exciting and sometimes even unexpected thing starts to present itself in our careers. And if there's anything that fires me up and makes me excited and makes me happy, it is seeing and hearing about that payoff. It is sometimes more exhilarating to see or even think about someone else experiencing that payoff than it is for me to experience it myself. And today's episode was actually inspired by a listener who, under the avatar of Sarroyo 1991, wrote a review for the show about how her career is beginning to take off in unexpected ways. And as I was reading her review, which electrified me and just made me so excited, I realized that there was really, really important stuff in it that applies to anyone who is either in the process of working through something difficult or is trying to move towards a difficult goal or who wants something more in their career. If you're someone who is going through a difficult time, or if you're someone who's starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel during that difficult time, then this episode is for you. This episode is all about why taking the time and doing the hard, messy, uncomfortable work of being with yourself during difficult moments and trying to build your self-confidence and really doing your best to get stronger in your career and in your professional environment. This episode is all about why it's worth it to stick with that and what can begin to happen for you when all of that work and all of the hard stuff begins to turn itself around and begins to pay off. It is about that journey. It is intended to help you stick with it if you're in something hard. And it is also intended as a reminder to you that when the good stuff happens, when you get rewarded for your efforts, when the tides start to turn, it is your moment to shine and it is your moment to bask in the enjoyment and glory of the success that is coming your way. Like I said, this episode was inspired by a listener of the show. So you'll hear me talk about her experiences a couple of times, but whether you're in the struggle part of the cycle or the success part of the cycle, I think that there will be a lot in here that will be applicable to you. So with that, I hope you enjoy this episode. I am so excited to have you tuning in, and let's get into the content for today. Enjoy. So we had a listener under the avatar of Sarroyo 1991. I hope I pronounced that right. She wrote a review for the show and talked about something that is happening with her in her career that is a really relevant and almost poignant piece of information and lesson for anyone who's listening. And in her review, she talked about how listening to the show helped her see that maybe she wasn't speaking up as much as she could have, and that she wasn't always necessarily showing up in that way. And that as she has adjusted her behavior through hearing ideas and inspiration on the show, she has been showing up differently in the workplace. But more importantly, she has been noticed. And as she has been noticed, she talked in her review about how new career opportunities are coming her way from the people around her because she's being noticed. And this is super, super important. And this actually gets at the name of the show and the inspiration of the show and one of the core ideas behind the show, and something that is really relevant to you if you're someone who wants to progress and wants to move up. And the way that I like to think about this is there's almost like a chain reaction, like a set of dominoes where you push the first domino and then it pushes the next domino and the next domino and the next domino. And in our careers, when it comes to career success, there's like a series of dominoes. And when you push the first one, it pushes all of the dominoes down. And that's why when you start showing up differently in your career, you might start to notice, just like this listener noticed, you might start to notice all these good things coming to you, because just by showing up differently, it's as if you're pushing that one domino at the end, and it sets a chain reaction of maybe 100 dominoes with just that push of that one domino. And so it's almost like, it almost feels like too good to be true. Like you only had to push this one little domino and you got this huge reaction. And that's how this can work in your career. And I'll explain what I mean in more tactical, more grounded terms. The way that I think about it is your first domino is your relationship with yourself. It's everything that happens in your inner world. It's your mindset. It's your self-confidence. It's your thoughts. It's your emotions. It's all this stuff that is incredibly important, but isn't always visible. It's stuff that's happening in your inner world. And the reason that so much of the content on this show revolves around your inner world, and the reason I often lean on the side of talking about mindset versus talking about tactical advice, although I talk about both on the show, mindset is a huge piece. The reason mindset is such a huge piece is because mindset is the first domino. And the first domino is the most powerful domino because it influences the most dominoes that are behind it, that get hit when that domino is pushed over. And so that first domino is your inner world. It's your mindset. And so as soon as the way that you relate to yourself and the way that you feel and the way that you think, as soon as that begins to shift and change, and it doesn't have to be dramatic, and it can happen in baby steps. So if you feel really stuck, don't think that this won't work for you. It can be tiny little things. But as soon as that inner world starts to change, it pushes the next domino. And the next domino are your outward behaviors. And your outward behaviors include things like how you do your work day to day. It includes things like how you communicate, how often you speak up. It includes things like how proactive you are on your project. It includes things like how much of your personality you bring out through just saying hello to people in the hallways and just connecting with and getting to know the people around you. Once you hit the first domino and you begin to change your inner world and your mindset and the way that you relate to yourself, the next domino falls, and those are all of your behaviors. And as you know, we do a lot of behaviors in the workplace, right? There's like a myriad, infinite map of behaviors from our work to our relationships. I mean, I could list them on, and you can think of those as a whole ton of dominoes falling down. So just by hitting that one domino of mindset and your relationship with yourself and getting stronger inside and becoming more self-aware, just by hitting that one domino, you then set off this chain reaction of all these other dominoes where you're doing better work, you're showing up with greater confidence, your work outputs are getting better, your presence is feeling stronger, people are connecting with you more, people are noticing you more because you're bringing out this confidence through your behaviors. So people can't always see the confidence. It's an inner state, although it can be sensed, and I can talk about that more in a future episode. but people can see what you do. People can see how you kick off that meeting, or people can see the extra thing that you did to make that project even better. People see all of those things. And so that one mindset domino hits like 100 of these behavioral dominoes. And then things get even better, because what happens is all of those behavior dominoes, all of the things that you start doing differently in your job, in your role, one by one, the dominoes are collapsing and hitting each other. And then it gets towards the next part of the domino chain. And this part of the domino chain is the chain reaction that happens when people really start to notice. So the more that you improve your mindset and hit the first domino, the more these behaviors come out powerfully. And so the people around you start to notice, because how could they not notice when there are all of these dominoes falling and so many things are being done at a higher level, and you're showing up at a higher level and you're showing up more powerfully, and it's impossible not to notice. And then that sets off the next part of the chain reaction, the next set of dominoes, which is people around you reinforcing that you're doing a really good job and acknowledging the higher level of contribution and engagement that you're bringing to your job, which is incredible. And so you might start getting more positive feedback. You might start getting better projects, maybe more of the projects that you want. You might at some point find yourself being offered opportunities to rise up and move forward and get promotions and get a salary bump. You could find that this positive feedback really starts to come towards you more and build towards better and better things in your career. And as you get that chain reaction of positive feedback, and as that next set of dominoes starts to fall on each other, it then triggers the next wave of dominoes, which is you feel so good because all of these good things are coming your way that it once again reinforces your confidence, and it sets off the next set of dominoes, which is you show up with even greater leadership. And I think you can see where this is going, which is it's a virtuous cycle and there's no end to the dominoes, because as you hit the first domino, and your mindset improves, then your behaviors improve, then people notice and you get rewarded. And as a result, your behaviors improve even more. Your outward behaviors improve even more because you're feeling seen in what you're doing, and you're really realizing that you have the capacity to do this. You are very talented. You can do these hard things, and that your contribution really does matter, and you're more powerful than you think you are. So you get that feedback, and then your behaviors become even stronger, and then you get more feedback, and then you get stronger, and then you get more feedback. And it's not to say you're reliant on this outward feedback. It's just to say that sometimes being seen and acknowledged, especially when we're working on ourselves and when our confidence is challenged and we're really taking steps to build it, getting acknowledged for that can be a really powerful thing. And it can be really nice and really healthy to say, wow, I deserved that, and that felt really good, and now I feel really good inside, and that makes me want to do more. And the reason that I wanted to talk about these dominoes and what this particular listener is experiencing is because I know that not every day is a good, huge, the dominoes are falling kind of day where you're feeling really, really good, right? I know that there are a lot of days where you're not feeling so good. Maybe you're not feeling confident. Maybe there's like a difficult situation at work. Maybe there's something that's really beating you down proverbially and really making things hard and making things feel really tough, and you're not necessarily feeling at your best. What I want you to know is that even in those moments, even though it doesn't feel like you're in that positive domino reaction, by being present with yourself and by doing the work, even in the hard times, maybe you haven't like pushed the domino and gotten the chain reaction going, but even in those tough times, you can be moving your finger closer to the domino to push it. So you might not be at that really good place yet where you're like, oh my gosh, all the work is paying off. But I just want you to know that if you're in a difficult place, that's actually the typical starting point for getting close to pushing the domino and setting off the chain reaction. So if there's pain and there's difficulty, you're doing the work to get closer. You haven't yet seen the chain reaction happen, but that doesn't mean that you're not yet moving towards it. And I was so thrilled to hear that this listener is experiencing positive change in her career and that she's really seeing that the world is responding to her as she's showing up differently. And she's really seeing like this domino reaction, like her dominoes are actively falling. And like I said, it's an infinite chain of dominoes. So now it will be going forever. And I wanted to share a couple of thoughts and celebration for this listener. First of all, like, good on you for taking matters into your own hands and really taking your growth into your own hands and taking ownership of that. That is not an easy thing to do. And I really want to commend you and celebrate you for that. I also want to share a couple of other really important things for you and for anyone out there who is ever at a point where really good stuff is happening. Because on this show, you'll hear this in more and more episodes, but there's a lot of discussion around the importance of our relationship with ourselves and the importance of being with ourselves when things aren't going well. So one of the ways that we get stronger is when things are going really, really poorly, or we're having a really rough day, or things just aren't going well at all. One of the ways that we get stronger is by being our own biggest supporter during those times. So instead of being like, oh, I suck and this horrible stuff is happening and I'm just a piece of shiz, instead of going down that really self-flagellating, destructive line of thinking, we want to be with ourselves and we want to go down a much more gentle line of thinking that sounds something more like, man, this is hard. Okay, that's okay. I'm feeling really bad right now. I'm not going to beat myself up for feeling that way. I'm just going to allow myself to feel it and not judge myself and not be really mean to myself on top of all of these other hard things. And so it's important in those moments to do that, because when you do that, you get stronger. Because what you're telling yourself is when things go wrong or I make a mistake or it's a bad day, no matter what happens, I'm not going to abandon myself. So it might feel like the world is abandoning me and everything is going wrong and no one's on my side and this is so hard. But I know that when that happens, I don't abandon myself. And that is what gives you the strength and the bravery to go into hard situations, because you know that no matter what happens, you'll be there for yourself. And so it's all about being there for yourself in those hard moments. But what this listener's experience is bringing up, which is equally important, is being there for yourself in the moments of success and being totally present with yourself and being there to celebrate yourself during the opposite times, the times when things are going really well, when things are coming your way. Embracing it and really riding the fullness of that wave and experiencing the joy and celebrating yourself in the way that you deserve. It's equally important to be with ourselves in the moments of success and really take it in and really own our success as it is to be with ourselves in the moments of difficulty, sometimes the moments of failure. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about being with ourselves in those moments of success and how you can take that success and how this listener can take that success and ride the wave. So when things are going really well and success is coming your way, it's like you're surfing in the ocean and you've caught this huge wave. And the way that I'm thinking about it is, okay, how can we milk this big wave that you're on? Like, you just caught the biggest, juiciest, most amazing wave in the ocean. Let's ride this thing out until it's like totally done. Let's make sure that you get every ounce of that wave and you feel like you've gotten everything out of it that you possibly can. And so the first thing that I would say, again, this is applicable to anyone who's experiencing success, is it is so important. This is so important. It sounds obvious, but it's so important to stop and celebrate. Celebrate what's happening. Do something that you don't usually do that makes you feel really good and makes you feel amazing. Because in doing that, what you're saying is, I own that this good stuff is coming my way, and I own that it's coming my way because of me. I own that I did some amazing stuff, some hard stuff. I did this, and therefore I deserve a reward. You're messaging to yourself that the success isn't an accident. It didn't come because you were lucky. It didn't come because you were in the right place at the right time. It came because you earned it and you did something that made it happen. And this is important because so often as women especially, we'll diminish what we've done and we'll try to kind of shut it down and extinguish the flame as soon as something good happens. And so you want to not only not do that, but you want to go in the other direction and acknowledge it and celebrate it and do something that feels really good and feels really special. And only you can decide what that is. So maybe you want to buy yourself something really nice. If that feels good for you, more power to you. Maybe you just want to go out and celebrate with, your partner or your friends, or maybe you want to take yourself on a solo hike in nature. Just something really special for you that you haven't done that you're doing to celebrate your accomplishment. And now there's another piece here that I want to share when it comes to really good things happening, particularly when they're unexpected, or particularly when something really good happens in your career and you're like, whoa, that was better than I thought it was going to be, which I wish this upon you. I hope that this is something that you relate to. And if it's not, it's definitely attainable as you get into the domino reaction. But if something really exciting happens and it almost feels like too good to be true, and you're like, whoa, like this is really cool. I never thought I could get such a big raise, or I never thought it would be so easy to get the job of my dreams, or I never thought that this would be so successful and I would feel so good. Whenever something happens that's kind of like more than you expected and goes outside of the realm of what you thought was possible for you, I want you to bottle up that feeling of surprise and delight, that feeling that you have when this thing comes and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think that was possible. Like I didn't think I could get that big of a raise, or I didn't think this could turn out so successful, or like I didn't think that my manager was so happy with the work that I was doing. Whenever it feels unexpected, I want you to remember that feeling of surprise and the feeling of the unexpected thing coming in. And the reason that I say that is because every time that happens, it's proof to you and proof to your brain that things that are better than what you think could happen can happen. So if the unexpected comes once, the unexpected could come again. And the reason that this idea is so important is because it's really easy to get stuck in these patterns of like, oh, I can't get this really amazing position, or I'll never get that raise, or like, I'll never be so good at this, or I'll never feel confident. We get into these thought patterns of I'll never, it's not possible because we haven't seen it before, because we don't have evidence. But when something unexpectedly good happens, we have this little nugget of evidence that we can be surprised, that really good things can happen, that sometimes the things that happen for us in our careers are better than we could have even imagined. And I want to read you a sentence from her review. So she talks about how her behaviors changed in the workplace. And then she said, "My mentor has noticed as well, and let me tell you, my career is about to take off in ways that I cannot even believe." Cannot even believe. This is so important because when something like this happens, when something comes into your career that you couldn't have believed before, it is proof to you that quote unquote unbelievable things can happen. And as soon as you begin to internalize that, and as soon as you begin to see that there are zero limits and that any limits that you've created aren't necessarily real, and that things that you seemingly cannot believe could happen actually do happen, that's the point at which you know, and at which you have permission to believe that absolutely anything could happen, and the things that seem impossible might not be impossible. And as soon as you internalize that, you are free. You are free to set whatever goal you want to set. You are free to aim for whatever dream you want to aim for. And it could be huge or it could be small. It's about what you want and it's about what your heart desires, right? So it doesn't matter what the goal is. But when something happens that's so good that you couldn't have believed it before, you have to remember and remind yourself and bottle up that feeling and that sensation of the unexpected thing, the thing that I couldn't have thought was going to happen, the thing that I had no idea that I never would have believed would happen just happened. Holy shiz, what does that mean for what else could happen next? And this is the exact mindset. It is the openness to the unexpected and not putting a ceiling on ourselves and not shutting things down. It is that exact mindset that propels people to enormous levels of success. And again, you can define success however you want to because it's your career and it's your life. And so I want to say to this listener, first of all, it gave me chills to hear that. And I'm so excited for you. And I wanted to say to you and to anyone who ever has that experience of like, oh my gosh, like this is so amazing and I can't believe this is happening and I'm really excited and happy right now. To anyone that's ever having that feeling or has that feeling or has had that feeling, one, really take time to celebrate and own the fact that you, through your power and your bravery and your intellect, that you created that outcome. And number two, remember what it feels like for the unbelievable thing to happen and hold that feeling within you so that you can stay open to whatever the next unbelievable thing might be. So that's what I wanted to share for today. There was just so much in there that was such good stuff. And I believe that we can learn so much from looking at each other's experiences and looking at each other's successes. And again, I just want to remind you that if you're not necessarily at a point where lots of good things are happening, sometimes the difficult period is the prerequisite. It's like the 101 class that you have to get through before you can push that domino and start the chain reaction. So stay with it. If this is where you want to be, if you want these things for your career, if you want to grow in your professional environment, I know it's tough, but see if you can stay with it so that you can stay with it long enough to see the success and experience those good feelings and the excitement and joy and celebration of finally reaching your goal. And that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you so much to Sarroyo 1991 for inspiring an entire episode from your review. I so appreciate it. And it's really beautiful, I think, when one person's experience can help everyone else. It's kind of crazy because I use my experience to make this show, then this show changes your experience, and then I hear about it and I share it with other people, and then it changes their experience, and then they tell me, and then I share that again, and then it changes more people's experience. And you can quickly see how, as women, as a collective, we can have this exponential growth in power when we set off our kind of own chain reaction, our own domino reaction of sharing our success with each other, supporting each other, celebrating each other, and really amplifying that and spilling it out into everyone who's in need of that inspiration and in need of that spark and that fire. So that brings me to a close for today. Thank you so much for your review. Thank you all so much for listening. If you ever feel called to write a review, please try to include some of what you're experiencing if that feels aligned for you and if that feels right for you, because your experience has the power to amplify other people. Because sometimes when we're in something, we feel like it's just us, but oftentimes our experience, whether it's difficult or whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, but sometimes it's being experienced by someone else, and it's that connection of, oh, I'm having the same experience that can be really, really powerful. So if you're able to share some of your experience when you do write a review, that will be really, really helpful, because then your experience can literally be used to help other women, which is the whole reason that I started this show, is because it's time for all of us to kind of step up and take up that space. And it's time for all of us to move into those spaces and those leadership roles that have been starved, absolutely starved, for the presence of women and for the presence of minorities. There are entire cohorts of people that are long overdue to rise up and have a voice. So thank you so much for your review. And with that, I'm going to sign off. Have an amazing day, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.